Thank you. You alluded to this in your opening, but there was a question, so I just want to read it. Did you vote for the tax cuts, and how does the bill affect the 9th District voters?
Yeah.
If there's any additional items.
Yeah, and I did, and I think, look, the 9th District is affected like everybody else. It is increasing in jobs. Do we have pockets that we want to increase faster? You bet we do. Do we have situations? I mean, we've got Allegheny Highlands, we've got some parts of the South Side, and we've got the coal fields, all of which have experienced higher than average unemployment in the state of Virginia. So we need to work on ways that we can make it better, but this helps. And so where I've gone around the district touring various facilities, it's amazing how many times people have said, yep, we're buying new equipment. Yep, we're adding on. And it was really interesting in one factory that I went into, and so they make big, heavy technical equipment in the mining industry, but they're shipping all over the country now. A few years ago, they were worrying about how they were going to be able to keep from laying employees off, because they'd never actually had to lay anybody off. Some had retired and so forth, but they never had to lay anybody off. Now their problem was, we're having so much competition to get our product from our factory to the place that's buying it out west, that we are struggling and we're having to pay more for truckers to carry it because there's just too much business going on out there. When you have industries fighting over how they're going to get their product to market, the economy's taking a big step forward. So what we need to work on is we need to make sure we have plenty of diesel mechanics. We need to make sure we have people who want to be truck drivers, at least in the short run. They might want to get another skill in case they actually get the technology smoothed out for driverless trucks. But I think we've got at least 10 years before we feel comfortable enough, maybe 15, to have a truck running down the road on the interstate without a driver in it. I want a driver in there. Maybe it's just because I'm old, but I want a driver in that truck. So I think that that's a good career, but people might want to be looking at something else. But that's a good place to start, because right now the demand is huge. And diesel mechanics and specialists with machine folks, we can name employers throughout the region that are looking for folks with those kind of skills. So we need to make sure that our folks are not just looking at Latin and classics, history, all great loves of mine, but also looking at practical things like how do we make sure that we have people that can make the technology and the robots of tomorrow continue to work, because a robot isn't going to fix itself most of the time. And maybe we'll get to that, but we're not there yet either.
Especially on parts of 81, you don't want to drive.
Yeah, you don't want to drive on a truck. Sometimes hard enough with drivers.
Okay. What is your stance on immigration?
Look, I'm for immigration. I want us to have legal immigrants. I disagree with the president, and he said various things, but when he says maybe we should limit legal immigration, I'm not for that. I want us to have legal immigration. But it needs to be legal immigration. It doesn't need to be folks just coming across the border. We had a plan this summer that had some controversy to it, but I voted for it because I thought it was a step in the right direction. As long as you define what you're looking for, having merit-based immigration makes sense. Almost every other country in the world that we compete with economically has a merit-based system of one form or another. We do not. The bill that I voted for got rid of the visa lottery. It got rid of the ban on certain countries. Most people don't realize that we only let in a certain number of people from certain countries, large numbers of countries, but particularly some of our Asian friends have like a 20-year waiting period. They come in legally, but they can't get citizenship because we only let in so many a year. And these are usually highly skilled individuals, doctors. I've had to write letters to extend the time period for doctors at the hospital here in Allegheny. We've had to do that in other situations. Professors, I mean, we're talking about skilled people you'd want, and because they come from a certain region of the world, we can't bring them in. I think that's wrong. So this bill would have said that we do all of that. I've signed on to another bill that lets us bring in more agricultural workers for seasonal work than we have currently, because we see the demand on that increasing. I am in favor of legal immigration. But illegal immigration, no. And do we need to protect our borders? Yes. And do we need to build a wall of some form? Yes, we do. Now, are we all talking about the Great Wall of China? No. Some places we can talk about just building a road. Right now, we have a section where we can't build a road because it's a wilderness area. So we can't get in there with our folks to defend our border. But you know who does get in there? The human traffickers and the drug dealers, because they know the good guys can't come in here to get us. So they're trampling all over whatever kind of plants are out there that we're trying to protect, whatever kind of animals we're trying to protect. They're out there doing whatever it is that they do. We build a road through there. Our folks tell us we can cut back on illegal immigration. We need to make sure that we have a process that's simpler. I once had an employee who was working for me who was a Bulgarian by birth and nationality. And she worked with the United States, USAID, the United States Aid for International Development, USAID. And they liked her so much, she was a lawyer there in Bulgaria. Again, got a skill set that we wanted. They invited her to come to the U.S. to get a U.S. education in law so she could be an international lawyer. Cupid intervened. She married a boy whose family was living in Franklin County. They now live in Roanoke. She worked for me, but you know what she had to do when she was working for me? She only worked for me about a year and a half, 2 years. She had to go at least once or twice. I was talking to her a few months back. She couldn't remember if it was once or twice either, but every now and then. She had to go to Charleston, West Virginia, have a retinal scan to make sure she was who she said she was. How much money are we wasting on that? We already knew who she was. We invited her to come here. I was telling this story at a public meeting a couple of years back, and a guy who owns a business trying to grow his business, doing a great job, said, yeah, my wife who's from Colombia has to do the same thing. Every so often she gets a notice in the mail, she's got to go have a retinal scan. Okay, folks, we can make this system easier. It shouldn't cost you $10,000 in attorney's fees to get into this country. You should be able to fill out a form. If you're from one of the hot-button countries where we may have a terrorist threat, we ought to vet you a little bit more. But at the same time, once you've been vetted, we ought not be having you run off every so often and have people doing retinal screens when we don't check on people who come into this country on a student visa or on a tourist visa or on a work visa. We have no idea. We don't have a computer system. You talk about your computer systems and new technology. We don't know when they leave. We don't know where they are. So if you just stay, they have no idea where you are. And that is one of the largest ways that we have illegal immigrants in this country. And you know, we need to have systems that tell us who's here and lets us know. And then whether you're a farm worker or whether you're a doctor at the hospital, we ought to make it easier for you to get into this country as long as you have a skill set that we're looking for.
I know you've talked a lot about coal and everything, but I want to make sure that I do a fair job with the question.
Yes.
So would you please explain the different forces that have come to bear on the demand for Virginia steam coal and whether utilities turning to natural gas is a response to regulation or market competition?
Yes. It's a little bit of both. There's no question that natural gas prices were depressed about 6 years ago. They got depressed below their norm. They've always fluctuated some, but because technology and fracking, that a lot of people don't like, has made the natural gas price come down, it made it cheaper to use natural gas. The problem was that there were a lot of coal plants that we ended up paying the cost on that were already built and had a life expectancy longer than just a few more years. And because of the pressure from regulations, a lot of those plants were closed down. So in Giles County, we had a plant there, Glenland. That was only being used because it was an older plant. It was only being used for peak periods, but it was being used. A regulation that was passed by the EPA, later found not to have been a proper regulation by the court, forced them to make the decision to shut that plant down because they couldn't deal with the regulations and the cost of those regulations. So they shut that plant down and laid off, it wasn't a huge number of people, but they were all good paying jobs, really good paying jobs. You talk about a little town, Glenland, that's a suburb of Narrows. Don't tell them I said that. But that's way, if you're driving down the road, that's what you're thinking. And you take those high-paying jobs out of there, and that means you've got less cars being bought, you've got less refrigerators being bought, etc. And then the regulation turned out to not be on sound footing legally. The problem is the plant was already closed. They didn't have any choice. Russell County visited their now natural gas plant. Would they have left it as coal if there hadn't been regulations? Yes, because the cost of converting it from coal to natural gas was so high that absent regulations, they would have let that plant go through its natural life cycle before they changed it to natural gas or built a natural gas plant somewhere else. as it was because of the regulatory pressure, they stopped using Southwest Virginia coal and went to natural gas, most of which is not coming from Southwest Virginia, although we have coal bed methane in Southwest Virginia. And what else is worse, they took 2 plants, they had 3, they went to 2 with natural gas. Natural gas doesn't burn as hot as coal, which means it takes more power plants to actually create the same amount of power. So we had a plant that had 3, it now has 2, or a facility. It only creates half the electricity it used to create. How long will it live? I think it'll last longer, but right now the life expectancy is 2025, but they spent millions of dollars converting it because the regulations gave them no other choice. They would have been much better off on a facility of its age. It's 60 years old. It was built the same year I was born. And they would have been much better off to have let it go its natural course. And guess who gets to pay? Guess who gets to pay for the fact that we spent millions of dollars upgrading a plant? The ratepayers of Appalachian Power. That's who's paying for it. It's not the stockholders. It's not the CEO. It's the ratepayers. It's you and me and the lady down the street who's having a hard time in the wintertime paying her bill. And she gets to pay more, and we all get to pay more because we didn't take it in little steps and move towards making it cleaner and better over time. And the rest of the world is building better coal plants, but everybody in this country is afraid to build a coal plant because it has now become the dogma of the opposing party. And I'm a Republican, for anybody who's watching this who doesn't know that. It's the dogma of the other party that we have to eliminate coal. Nancy Pelosi made some comments in that regard recently. Hillary Clinton made comments in that regard. Barack Obama said, you can have a coal-fired power plant if you want to, but we're going to make it so expensive that the prices of electricity are going to skyrocket. And he's getting his wish. And it's not what I want. And we can do better, but we have to have sane policies towards coal. But the answer is yes, both regulation and the low cost of natural gas. But it would have come over time, and instead they had to do it quick, and that's costing the ratepayer.
Thank you. As you may be aware of the situation in Montville, Virginia, of the closure of the fuel terminal that dispenses over 500 million gallons of fuel to West and Central Virginia, that impact will have on our communities is significant. How do you feel about the negative impact of this fuel situation with 2 pipelines coming that will not benefit?
Okay, we're getting our gases mixed up. All right, Montvale is fuel for your car. The 2 pipelines are natural gas. They're completely different. So let's get that off the table. Now, Montvale is a serious problem, and myself and Bob Goodlatte, it's actually in the 6th Congressional District, but it does affect a big chunk of the 9th Congressional District. We met with the company, we said, what can we do? Is there something we can help you with? You know, is there a regulation we need to look at? And the answer was no. There wasn't anything that we could do, because here's what happened. They built a new line in the 1970s, and they used what everybody thought was brand new technology and was going to be fabulous. Well, it turns out that 35, 40 years later, it starts having cracks. And they're running, I don't know how many gallons, but I would guess hundreds of thousands to millions of gallons of fuel gas, not natural gas, but automobile gas through those lines a year. They're afraid of a major environmental spill. They said they thought they were safe through September. I think they're going to close down a little bit earlier, but they're closing down either the end of this month, which is just a couple days away, or sometime in September. But they were very, very concerned about having a major oil spill because the pipe could go. They felt like they were safe to the end of September, but any time after that, based on the history of other pipes with that same technology, that was going to be a problem. So now we have to look for our automobile gasoline from other areas. There is a facility in Charleston, so the Allegheny Highlands are probably going to do better than the Roanoke Valley. Withville, which is impacted in Princeton, and Bluefield, which is impacted, probably will get sources elsewhere. Once you get past Withville, you've got a facility in either Kingsport or Knoxville. I forget which. Do you remember? I'm looking at one of my staffers, but it's one of the other. But it's close enough that they can serve up into the 9th District from the south. And there's a facility in Greensboro, so Martinsville is probably going to be okay. But in the Roanoke Valley, you're probably going to see your gasoline prices tick up a few pennies, maybe as much as 6 cents a gallon, just because it now has to be hauled by truck. And unfortunately, they would have to, and this is where the 2 pipelines do come into play. And look, I have serious concerns about parts of the Mountain Valley Pipeline. I don't want to mislead anybody. But because there's so much resistance to any kind of a pipeline being built, the company felt like they could not build a new pipeline. And the way their easements worked, apparently, not only did they have a piping problem, but their easements would not allow them to build another pipeline next to this one. They would have to tear the old one out and put a new one in, and even then they would have to get new permits, and they felt like the cost of doing that was greater than the profit they would make over the next 30 years on putting a new line in to Montpelier. So that's why Montpelier. But the 2 pipelines that are natural gas only have an indirect effect on it, and they're not the same animals. So those 2 pipelines have no impact on our gasoline price.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions in the back? Congressman, if you want to wrap up with a couple of minutes.
You know, it's always good to talk issues. I hope that you can tell that I do love my job. I would love to be re-elected. I love doing my job because I think I'm making a difference for Southwest Virginia, the Allegheny Highlands, and Southside Virginia. I study the issues. I learn about the issues. I try to make sure that I know what I'm talking about. And if I don't, I'll say, okay, I don't. We had that one question. I said, I'm not familiar with that terminology. But I have spent a lot of time working hard in Washington and in the district, trying to make sure that the people of our region are well represented. I would like a renewal on my contract for 2 years. I would ask for your vote and your support on November 6th. I believe that we need to continue to have conservative, rational representation that talks about how do we solve the problems of industry and jobs. Because if you just want everybody to work for the government, I can assure you that the regions I represent will not be served well. It's just the nature of big government. When they built Obamacare, for example, they built it. It might work very well in an urban area like New York City or Washington, D.C., but it has not worked well for us. When I have a patient in Salem, Virginia, who's been going to North Carolina for cancer treatment, who's told she has to get a new doctor because her Obamacare plan won't cover crossing state lines. And the same thing happens in many other areas of this district. So that if you have a specialist and you're having the government tell you got to stay inside Virginia, and you have a child in Bristol who wants to go to the children's hospital in Johnson City, and the hospitals down there specialize because they were a region. They didn't look at the state line. They looked at how can we benefit our region. So the best children's hospital in that region is in Johnson City. And all of a sudden you're told because the insurance is one size fits all or limited number of options, and you can't go there anymore, you have to go to Charlottesville, which for them is a long way away. It's closer to y'all, but a long way away from somebody living in Bristol or living in Scott County or living in Lee County at the Cumberland Gap, which is by car, if you go through West Virginia, it's going to be about 4.5 to 5 hours from here. It's a big deal. And people don't seem to understand it. So the rural areas are the ones that I try to fight for. When I talk about drug policy, I talk about the fact that you can get to 5 different states in my district in a single day and see doctors and see pharmacists. If you're trying to get illegal drugs, I'm in the hotbed. That's why I worked hard for what we call prescription drug monitoring programs that cross state lines, that let people communicate across state lines. Because I have a district that's the poster child for that. And the same thing happens in so many things at the federal level. They want to make it all about one state. Well, that doesn't work if you live in Covington. It doesn't work if you live in Bluefield. It doesn't work if you live in Martinsville. It doesn't work if you live in Bristol. It doesn't work if you live in Ewing, Virginia, down in Lee County. It just plain doesn't work. We don't need the government to run everything. We need some help from time to time. But we don't want the government to be in charge of every part of your healthcare, every part of your industry, every part of your life. And so I hope that the people of Southwest Virginia know I'm fighting hard for their values and their beliefs in Washington, D.C. And again, I ask for your vote and your support. Thank you very much. God bless each and every one of you. God bless the United States.
Well, thank you, Congressman. Rachel will present you with a basket of items representing the Allegheny Highlands. For the audience, we encourage you to vote. We thank you for your attendance, and we encourage everyone to stay for a few minutes to meet the Congressman. Thank you, and have a good evening.